in an unknown location at the edge of town. Ugh. I'm pretty sure it's me making a painful groan as my body reboots. With a pounding inside my head that makes even my teeth ache, I slowly begin to blink open my eyes. Dim light soothes my vision as it blurs and focuses. All I can do is roll my gaze around. My body is heavy and sluggish. I can feel I'm on something solid and flat, but that's about all. Harsh white light pools from the far side of the unfamiliar room. It casts reflections on a selection of clean white hospital machines, but as my vision clears, I can see they don't match the rest of the room. The dank, the dank walls are peeling, blooms of green mold making a patchwork across the grey. Cobwebs, dust, and ivy hang like some kind of eerie bunting from the ceiling. The cracked, dirt caked windows are partly sealed off by planks of rotting wood, though I manage to just see that it's dark outside. Rain hammers on a metal corrugated roof above, but it's hard to distinguish that from the drumming of my headache. Looks like an abandoned warehouse. At least I was kind of on the right track with the Ferris warehouse. The thought gives less comfort than I'd hoped, and I'm beginning to wish all my senses weren't suddenly returning. The musty, damp smell invades my nose and makes me attempt a weak cough. I groan lightly again, trying to roll off whatever I'm on, but my arms don't budge and neither do my ankles. Glancing down in a sudden panic, I find leather straps binding my limbs in place. The thick metal buckles pinch into my skin, the cold iron biting like ice. You're finally awake. The echoing voice brings a flood of memories storming into my mind. The smoke, the fight, the thralls, Murphy, Farrar. Hmm. Keep as calm as possible. Forcing my initial reaction away, I take a steady breath. My limbs relax in the bonds, the straps no longer pinching at me. Yet I'm still well aware of their unyielding grasp around my hands and feet. Glad to see you're not suffering any side effects from the drug I gave you, Murphy says, his shoes squeaking against the floor as he walks around the medical table I realize I'm on. He strides into my limited view. It was a necessary thing, I'm afraid. I watch him carefully, my gaze following every motion he makes. He seems calm, stepping even closer. As he approaches, I can see perspiration glistening on his clammy skin. He notices where my gaze has fallen and gives a heavy shrug. Excuse my appearance, your blood drained from me a while ago and it's left me a little shattered. He raises a hand to tug back his strands of lank, sweat soaked hair, his fingers shaking. My blood? I ask, catching the words after a moment. Oh, yes, he says, grinning and leaning over me. Don't you understand? Your blood is quite incredible. Hmm. Okay. Then how about you take some and let me go? The suggestion makes him chuckle. If only it were so simple, detective. I'm guessing it's not? I ask, the false hope draining from me. He shakes his head. Not even a little bit. He makes to step away, and I let my attention follow, my head rolling to one side. As I do, I spy a polished metal tray by the side of the bed. A selection of vicious looking medical tools. I can only imagine they're designed to inflict pain rather than heal, lay like a row of shark's teeth on its surface. Oh, don't worry about those, Murphy says with a smile. They're just for show. Unless you misbehave, of course. Then they'll be most useful. He winks, sending a shudder rattling down my back that adds to the aches already there. How did you get my blood? I ask. Distracting him might help for a while, although I'm going to have to come up with a better plan at some point. Hopefully my head and body will stop pounding long enough to let me think clearly. Murphy shrugs, fiddling with a couple of the machines at the end of the room. Oh, remember when you cut yourself in my lab? He looks over his shoulder at me. Even after testing, it was more than enough to put my plan into motion today. What? He half turns to me and cocks his head. What did the agency actually find out about your blood? Then the question is waved away by a flick of his hand. It doesn't matter. What I know will far exceed what they think they know. I stare at him, subtly testing the bonds. They still don't move. I stifle a sigh. Your blood is power, detective, Murphy exclaims, hands flinging into the air in excitement. Although that may make it impossible for me to use my pheromones, the power your blood provides was well worth the risk. What? I feel like I'm on repeat. Murphy settles down on a chair, the rotted wood groaning. Your blood is like a battery for us. A vampire who consumes your blood will have an extreme boost in their abilities. It will eventually be burned through, though, like burning through an energy drink. So the effect is, unfortunately, only temporary. But the more blood is consumed, the longer the effect stays. The information pinches at my already bruised mind. That's how you manage to create thralls during the day. He nods. Yes, well done, detective. So you're hoping to drain me? No, no, don't be silly, he says. I wouldn't want to waste it. Keeping you alive is most important. A sharp smile cuts across his features. I want years of use out of you, detective. I swallow down the sudden churning in my stomach. But I didn't bring you here just to inform you of your unique situation. He stands from the chair, leaning over to start wheeling one of the machines closer. A selection of clear tubes protrudes from the sides of it, the plastic tentacle like pieces dragging over the mud caked floor. I've discovered something that can enhance your purpose even further. My eyes remain fixed on the machines, a dread settling like a heavy fog over my body. You see, when people with your blood type, he pauses, turning to face me with a chuckle. Well, I suppose that's just you now. He titters a laugh again, returning to poking buttons on the machine. When people with your mutation have vampire blood added into their system, the effects become mind blowing. He rolls a tall, standing metal pole beside the bed. It squeaks to a stop beneath a stream of harsh light. A bag of deep red blood swings from a hook at the top of it. Understanding hits me like a train. Hmm. You put that in me and then what? I'm so glad you're as interested as I am. Well, first thing we do is see if you survive. He leans back with a chuckle. After that, I guess we find out if it works. That first bite will be intensely satisfying, not only to my body, but to my curiosity, I'm sure. I don't hold back a grimace this time. But it won't change you at all, if that's what you're worried about. You'll still be boringly human. He returns his focus to the machine, stooping down to retrieve one of the plastic tubes. A needle juts out from the end of it. The other times I've tried this have been failures, as you well know, he says. But I finally understand what I was doing wrong. He steps closer, needle grasped in his white knuckled hand. I was trying to replace all of their blood with vampire blood, which had the unfortunate side effect of killing them. He purses his lips. But now I know I have to mix the two, human and vampire, not replace it all completely. With a flashing gaze, he looks over me. And with your mutation, it should take this time. Hmm. Should take? Oh well, now I feel so much better. Murphy purses his thin lips. Your sarcasm is unappreciated, detective. By you, maybe. He sneers now. Let's get on with this, shall we? I hiss in pain as he jabs the needle into my arm with violent force. He doesn't apologize, only sets about typing it in place. Afterwards, he walks to the other side, burying another needle into my other arm. The tubes jut out of my skin. It's almost like watching a nightmare rather than reality. I wonder if that spirit of yours will remain so strong after this. He smiles and then flicks on the machine. It whirs to life, sputtering for a moment. It's a couple of seconds before the tubes begin to stain with a dark red. I watch in horrified panic as the blood spills from the bag and creeps closer to my arm through the plastic. As much as I try to struggle away, it crawls around the twists of tubing, ever closer towards me. It finally hits the needle. Pain erupts like acid searing through my veins. White hot agony explodes around my body. My back arches. I scream. At the agency facility, Nat leans against the wall of the corridor, hands shoved deep into her pockets to stop them from clenching. The others seem to be as uneasy as she is. Morgan puffs on her third cigarette in a row, sucking on it so deeply that the light burns down to almost reach her fingertips. Farah is seated on the edge of a chair, her feet tapping a fast rhythm on the ground as she fidgets. And even Ava looks lost, pacing the short width of the corridor, a hand running over her hair. They all flash their gazes to the green door as it finally opens. Rebecca steps out, clothes still torn and hair still knotted from the fight. She hasn't stopped working since finding out Jules was taken. Well? Farah asks, jumping up from her chair. The Thrall is awake and no longer under Murphy's control. she says, to which there is a collective relieved sigh from the team. Agent Chana is on her way. We'll find Murphy soon enough. Morgan arches a thick brow. Bringing Chana in on this? Nat purses her lips, wondering the same thing, but she can see the desperation in Rebecca's brown eyes, fear tightening her expression. She will be able to pull the information from the Frau's mind, Rebecca explains. It's in there somewhere, even if he doesn't know it now. Yeah, Farah says, but the agency doesn't usually allow that kind of thing on people caught in the crossfire. We need to do this, Rebecca barks suddenly, making them all flinch. Nat steps forward towards her as she lets out a heavy, calming breath. It's all right, Rebecca. We understand. She stares up at Nat, eyes gleaming in the dull light. Then you understand what I'll do to make sure Jules gets back safely. Nat frowns in uncertainty. She glances down as Rebecca pulls something out of her pocket and holds it out on her palm. Ava's eyes widen and she takes a wide step up beside Nat. That's DMB, the pure form. You can't ask us to use this, Rebecca, Nat says. Murphy will get what he deserves without you risking using this. If they found out. I don't care about the rules, she says, voice calm but firm. I care about my child. Take this and use it if you need to. Nat glances at Ava, who hesitates before giving a nod. All right, Ava says, reaching out to take the syringe and shoving it quickly into her pocket. Nat bites back further protest, and with a final nod, Rebecca disappears back into the interrogation room. Through the crack in the door, Nat can just see the Frau, now once again human, strapped to a chair, eyes flashing about the room in terrified confusion. The door shuts. Well, Bra pouts for a moment. I've never seen her so willing to skirt the rules. In fact, I think this is the first. Nat sighs, but uncertainty still niggles at her mind. It is her child that she's trying to find. This is why emotional connections only hinder our progress, Ava states, folding her arms. Oh yeah, Farah says. They're totally awful. She grins as Ava flashes a glare her way. Heels clack against the stone floor. Nat swings around to see Agent Chana striding down the hallway, her gleaming dark chestnut hair tied into a messy knot. Her usual stylish clothing is replaced by jogging bottoms and a t-shirt. Guess Rebecca called her out of bed for this. It's probably near midnight. Nat hadn't even noticed the time pass. Chana steps into the light of the corridor, revealing the pointed tips to her ears. When she blinks, her large eyes flash a bright blue before settling to their usual bright hazel. Where is Agent Langford? Chana asks, a half yawn following the question. Ava gestures to the door. Right, Chana says. Nat reaches out towards her and she spins to face her. Thanks for doing this, she smiles. I'd do anything to help anyone in this agency, you know that. We all would. And with that, she opens the door and steps inside. I guess now we just wait, Ra says, falling back into the chair and sighing. Ava tenses. I doubt it'll be long. And then we can finally find Jules. Nat mutters, worry for the detective consuming her like a poison. Next chapter. Still in an unknown location at the edge of town. Darkness. It's all that consumes me for a long while. I'm not sure how long, but it certainly feels like an eternity. Then light flutters at the edge of my senses. There's a noise too, something familiar, a sound that makes my skin crawl. Detective? The voice asks. Come on, you have to be alive. My eyes peel open slowly, and I instantly squeeze. Then I squeeze them shut again as the dim light pierces into my head. Ow. Oh, the voice exclaims. You are alive! You're really alive! A hand shoves back the matted hair from my sweat-lined face, the gesture almost as heavy as a slap. The excitement in the voice sends a ripple of pounding achiness through my head and body. There's a definite taste of metallic blood lining my tongue. Finally, I force my eyes open again and get a sickening sense of déjà vu. The same dilapidated room greets me, peeling walls, wood-blocked windows, moldy furniture, and Murphy. The machines and needles are gone at least. It worked! Murphy cries, mouth contorted into the biggest grin I've ever seen. Can you believe it? With no energy to respond, I'm thankful when a sudden clatter echoes from outside the room and interrupts his very loud celebration. Murphy spins on his heel, glaring at the door, before turning his gaze to me. Excuse me, Detective, I shall be but a minute. I want to make sure we are enjoying this moment alone, don't I? Go anywhere. And with a chuckle at his own joke, he heads out of the room, snapping the door shut behind him. Silence settles over the room, the lack of sound soothing to my pain-racked body. I'm alone. My gaze flops to the door, not hearing footsteps. I probably won't get another chance like this if I want to escape, but even the idea makes me wretched at the thought of moving. My energy is currently running near empty. Well, the point is, first of all, we by ourselves cannot escape. It's not going to happen. Secondly, if we manage to escape and Murphy comes after us, the detectives probably won't find him if we're not. Like, how are they supposed to find me if I'm not where Murphy is? No, we're not risking pushing through the pain. Although that is not the reason for it, but we're not escaping. As much as I know I want to get out of here, pushing my body past its limits, which it's feeling painfully like I'm already getting close to, wouldn't be the best idea. Murphy has to let me out of those bonds at some point, so that would be a better time to think of a plan. With a reluctant nod, I relax back onto the table as much as I'm able, trying to conserve my energy for when it's truly needed. It's only a few more minutes of silent waiting before the door slams open and makes me flinch. The sudden motion sends my body into a spasm of pain once again. Murphy strides to the table, muttering something under his breath. I can't hear what it is, but by the look on his face, I would say it wasn't something for polite company. He yanks at the straps around my limbs, the buckles almost dripping off with the force he uses. I yelp as he grabs my arm, dragging me off the table. My legs barely work, my aching feet stumbling to work again. But Murphy doesn't care, just holds me alongside him as I stagger to keep up. If your agency bodyguards want a show, then I'll give them one, Murphy hisses, dragging me out into the corridor. The pain is half forgotten as my eyes widen. They came for me. Of course they did. The corridors are almost impossible to navigate. A stray shaft of moonlight streaks through a hole in the metal ceiling, the only thing to guide our way. But Murphy doesn't stop, just marches on through, dragging me like a sack of potatoes beside him. Cracked, fallen beams feel like 100-foot hurdles as I try to stagger over them behind Murphy, only to end up slipping on the rust-colored puddles on the other side. Rain beats against the roof and dribbles of it run down the walls. I think my bare feet might be cut from the sharp debris lining the floor like a vicious rug, but I'm in so much agony I can't really tell. My breath fogs the air in front of me, making it even harder to see. I have to keep blinking my eyes rapidly just to stop them from closing altogether. My fingers are numb, my legs throbbing, my mouth dry and cracked, my skin bruised and battered, and my hope is crushed with every dragged step. I finally collapse onto the ground as we make it into a large open room, my legs buckling beneath me. Murphy tut-tuts loudly. Get up, I can hear them close by. His fingers remain like a clamp on my arm, but if I'm ever going to warn Unit Bravo, then I know now is the time to do it. I don't know if that's a good idea. That's the first point where I actually have to think about whether staying quiet is not the best scenario here. The thing is, let me think this through. What would Murphy do if I just let out a scream? Ideally. I hope he's not like gonna be like screaming, "Hey, I'm here! Murphy is also here. Be careful," because that's stupid. They would assume Murphy's with him. Just let out a scream as loud as you can to alert them of your position. In that case, Murphy's probably not gonna be doing much to me. Please, Jules, don't be stupid. I'm trusting you with this one. I open my mouth to yell out, only for firm fingers to clamp over my mouth. Well, No, detective, Murphy reprimands. They'll find you soon enough, but not until I'm ready. Choice is an illusion. He pulls his fingers away and I give a retch at the salty taste his touch leaves. With another painful yank, he hauls me onto my feet. We make our way into the center of the room. He then forces me onto my knees and gives a wide smile. Let's greet your friends. Only a moment later, Unit Bravo come crashing into the room, stumbling to a stop when they see me. Bra's eyes widen as they meet mine. Jules, she calls, taking a wide step forwards, only to be stopped by Nat gently tugging her back. Bra glares at her, but Nat only gives a sad frown. Bra falls back beside the group, though I notice her jaw is now clenched tightly. So nice of you to join a little celebration, Murphy says, spreading his arms wide. Bra arches a brow. Not much of a party by the looks of it. Murphy sneers. Of course it is. We're celebrating. He then bends down once again, dragging me onto my feet. I sway beside him, trying to swallow down the intense pain which shoots throughout my body. The detective here is proof of my success. Each one of Unit Bravo's gazes turns on me, a range of emotions flickering onto their faces. Confusion, curiosity, worry, anger. But I'm afraid you're crashing our little shindig, Murphy continues, so you'll have to leave. I let out a groan as Murphy suddenly shoves me away with such force that I end up crashing onto the ground. My back collides with a half-cracked wall, pain radiating down my spine. I grit my teeth together. It's a few agonizing seconds before I can actually take a gasp of air into my momentarily paralyzed lungs. The team tense, but they remain where they're standing. You really want to take us on? Farah scoffs. There's 5 of us. She glances at me, my body hunched, gasping at each breath. My hand is clasped to my bruised side. Well, 4.5 maybe. I'll take my chances, Murphy replies, his expression as serious as his tone. Beams creak under the strain of the silent tension between us all. The tension drowns the entire damp, dark factory. Murphy stares at the team glare at Murphy. The tension finally cracks. Morgan speeds forward once again, just a blur of motion before my eyes. There's a heavy thump. I watch as Murphy is catapulted across the room, slamming into one of the metal beams. It buckles and bends under the impact. Morgan smirks, until Murphy staggers back onto his feet and brushes himself off. I guess we're beginning, Murphy says. He hurls himself towards Morgan, who barely has time to realize what's happening before Murphy's on her. The rest of Unit Bravo speed forward to join in. I didn't think I'd be much use in this fight considering my condition, but the speed and force being used makes me stumble back in shock. It's one thing knowing vampires are more advanced than humans, it's another thing witnessing it right before my eyes. 1 minute they blur into action, groans and thuds the only thing I can keep up with, and a moment later they pause to catch a breath, and then begin all over again. I press my body to straighten a little. My face twists from the aches storming through me at the motion. In my condition, I'm not sure what I can do, but I'm not sure just standing here is the best idea either. Tend to my wounds as much as possible. With Murphy distracted, I stumble over to an old piece of machinery, leaning against it to take some of the strain off of my cramping legs. Speckled streams of moonlight are my only source of light as I begin trying to tend to my wounds as much as possible. But it's an impossible task, especially because this isn't my strongest talent. The pieces of already torn clothing I use as makeshift bandages just won't stay in place. My fingers are trembling with painful exhaustion. After yet another failed attempt, I throw down the cloth and let out a sharp breath. Then my focus is drawn back to the fight as the punches and thumps suddenly silence. Murphy is stumbling back from Unit Bravo, heavy breaths puffing out of them, all and backs arched like hackles on a pack of wolves. Murphy slowly holds up his hands and a smile cracks through his bruised face. All right, I get it. I can't beat you, especially not all of you, like this. I stand from my place and shuffle a little closer to hear it. Why would you go closer? The echoes of his words are almost lost beneath the continual pounding of the rain on the corrugated metal roof. Then surrender now and come to the agency peacefully, Nat calls, her words strained with obvious fatigue. Murphy's smile grows. Oh, but you don't understand. I said I can't beat you like this. The smile falls. It's lucky I have a backup plan. With a gasp, I stumble back. Murphy appears right in front of me, eyes glaring into mine. Time to test your worth, detective. He sneers, snapping a hand out towards me. Try to dodge out of the way. In a sudden panic, I swing away from him as quickly as I can, but exhaustion and pain make the movement slow and barely balanced. Murphy simply flashes a step behind me, clamping a hand to the side of my face. I grit my teeth, trying to move, but his hand doesn't shift. This wasn't how I wanted this moment to go. He jerks my hand to one side and plunges his teeth into my neck. Ah! My yell echoes and pounds inside my head. Unit Bravo halt their rush to my side at the sight. Whatever pain I was in before explodes through me. My lungs tighten and my breath suffocates in my throat. Deep red blood pools seeping over my shoulder from the bitten tears in my neck. Murphy laps up every drop. In a weak instinctual move, I draw up my arm and snap my elbow back into his stomach. Amazingly, he stumbles away at the blow. I drop to my knees, clutching a hand to the searing wound on my neck. Blood seeps through my fingers. Unit Bravo suddenly close in around me, and we all watch as Murphy gives a loud retch and then begins to laugh. His laughter echoes like a haunting melody around the shadowed room, and even Unit Bravo seemed to shift under the eerie weight of it. Murphy's body shakes. His grin is so wide it almost splits his face. Shall we try this again? He asks. Morgan frowns and doesn't even wait a moment before rushing towards him. Murphy simply holds out a palm, and Morgan crashes into it like a concrete barrier. She flies back, crashing into the wall 20 feet away with an impact so hard a crater forms where she's smashed into it. Pieces of concrete crumble around her as she slumps to the ground. I stare wide-eyed as Morgan manages to crawl onto all fours, a line of blood pooling over her bottom lip. She takes a strangled, gasping breath. Holy crap, Bra mutters. But Morgan clambers up again and heads for Murphy. This time she's joined by the rest of the team. They're all pummeled back with ease, landing in a spread of heaped, moaning bodies. Murphy smiles again, raising his hands in front of his face and flexing his fingers. Oh, this is even better than I could have imagined. The team force themselves up and try again. And again. Then again. Each time they suffer a set of new injuries. Soon they look as bloodied as I do. Murphy's laugh continues to add a tormenting soundtrack to the painfully one-sided fight. My mind is beginning to spin at the amount of blood oozing from my wound. When the vampires go down the next time, Farah rolls onto her side and looks to Ava with a pained wince. We've got to do something, she says through a crackled voice. Just running and hoping to land a hit isn't exactly working. I stare at the defeated team and realize she's right. Murphy is stronger and faster, but there has to be a way to beat him. My mind pinches at the thought, blood loss making my breath light. My head feels like it's drifting to the ceiling, but I do my best to focus, clamping my fingers tighter around my neck. Well, I mean, the bottom two options are clearly terrible. The one thing that came to my mind, why don't you take yourself hostage? Clearly, the ulterior motive, the one thing Murphy wants, is Jules' blood. Now, he can only have that if Jules is alive. This is a rare scenario, but why not take yourself hostage? Put a knife to your throat and say to Murphy, like, fuck off, or I will kill myself. And in Murphy's position, well, he can do one of two things. One, he can call a bluff. Or two, he can leave and try again another time. Because in that situation, I think those are his only two options. I don't think either of those two accomplish that. What's happening to Murphy? Well, he's drank your blood and he's powered up, essentially. He's drank a lot of your blood, so the effects will hold up for quite a long time. I can't see any benefit in that. I mean, I might as well look around to see if there's anything else here. What exactly were you planning on doing to defeat him? I ask. Ava rolls her exhausted attention in my direction and hesitates. Then she tugs something from the lower pocket of her combat trousers. A small syringe sits on her palm. I have no idea what's inside, but it's obviously our only option. Oh, yeah. All right, I reply with a nod, then glance about the room with a flashing gaze. Dizziness plagues the edges of my vision, but I focus more sharply, staring into the deep, damp shadows. Rain cascades like a waterfall from a hole in the roof, slapping against a pile of long-forgotten factory equipment. My eyes fall on a sharp piece of metal jutting out from the pile with a coil of rusty wire spiraling all around it. An idea slowly forms like a cloud inside my fuzzy mind. Bring Murphy over to me, I say, turning back to face Ava. What? She replies in a sharp whisper. I stare at her for a long moment. You have to trust me. It's a few long seconds before Ava's expression softens and she nods. And not a moment too soon as Murphy once more barrels towards the team. Thankfully, he's ignoring me as he has done throughout most of the fight. Scrambling forward, I drag myself closer to the pile of rusted parts. Blood trickles down my body, leaving a gory trail behind me. It's almost instantly washed away by the rain which seeps through the roof. When I reach the equipment, I fall onto my knees next to it and set to work. Gripping the wire, I begin yanking it off the spiked metal. It bites into my fingers, but my pain is already so intense I can no longer feel any more piled onto it. As the wire comes free, I twist it around one pillar nearby. Then I crawl over to the opposite one and do the same. With a quick glance at the setup, I turn to look at Ava, whose gaze flashes to meet mine. She gives another nod, and with a yell of effort, Ava throws her foot out at Murphy's chest. Murphy, obviously not expecting such a final attack from a staggering opponent, tumbles backwards. Unsteady steps lead him closer to the wire. I snap it taut. Murphy trips. The spike spears through Murphy's thigh, lets out a roar of pain that makes the factory shudder. Not missing a beat, Ava lunges forward and drives the syringe into Murphy's neck. No! Murphy chokes, clawing at Ava's hands, but Ava doesn't budge until the last drop of whatever is in the needle has sunk beneath Murphy's skin. Ava stumbles back, choking a cough and dropping her hands to her sides. I make to join her, eyes wide. Murphy begins to convulse, the spike slicing deep into the already mangled wound of his leg. My stomach churns at the sight of it, until finally Murphy lets out a long breath and falls silent. All I can hear are the team's labored breaths in the dark. It seems to take the longest minutes of our lives for everyone to realize it's finally over. We did it! The words. Oh, that was me. Never mind. The words exhale from me, my voice shuddering and broken. I stare over at Ava next to me, her eyes as wide as mine in relief-filled shock. We really did it! My gaze shifts past Ava to find Faraz. The young agent is already gazing at me, a grin firmly planted on her face. Shadow encroaches on my mind. I suddenly realize the warm flow from my wound is stemming, and not because I'm healing. I return Faraz's smile, then I collapse to the ground. Next chapter.